All right, the fun fairy accessories. So this is what turns your just traditional container garden into a fairy garden. And there are so many different ways that you can build fairy accessories. This is just a few little examples here of some simple benches made from both popsicle sticks and wood. In general, though, you're going to want to collect supplies, and this is where your creativity really gets to shine. So just go out for a nice walk and start collecting things that you find interesting. I've got quite a collection of things here. I love stones and different colored stones, and I'm always on the lookout for heart-shaped rocks. That's one of my favorite things to collect. Different kind of nutshells you'll find out as you're walking around in nature as well. There's some walnut shells here in this picture, but acorn caps, those are super fun to use because there's a lot of different ways you can use those in a fairy garden. Sometimes there's old weeds that dry out. This is teasel here, and then this is a milk pod that's been dried out. I've got part of a gourd here, lots of different kinds of sticks of different sizes, pieces of bark. This piece of bark I liked a lot because I don't know if you can tell in this picture, it looks like there's a door cut right out in it. So it's already ready as a fairy door. Dried flowers are a fun addition as well. This is hydrangea. Some other choices that you could look for are statice that comes in a lot of different colors. And that's a nice addition if you wanted to add that. Moss is one of my favorite things to use. So here pictured is some moss that was growing on some tree bark out in my woods that I collected a whole bunch of the bark. And I'll use that in its entirety in the fairy garden. But if you don't have moss or access to it, you can purchase preserved moss in the floral section of most craft stores. And it can come in sheets that you can tear apart, or it comes in clusters. So if you don't find any growing, you can buy it already preserved. You could use seashells. I did find a little snail shell that didn't have anybody living in it, so I grabbed that and thought it might come in handy. But you know, your imagination is the limit here. There are so many different things you can build. One thing I want to talk a little bit about, though, is glue. Depending on where you're going to keep your fairy garden, you've got to think about, is it going to get rained on? Are you going to keep it out all year long so that it could experience hot summer heat as well as cold winter freezes? So different kinds of glue are going to hold up differently for those different environments. Hot glue is great to use for crafts because it sets so quickly, but it's not always the best choice if you want to have something that's going to last outside and be exposed to wind and rain and snow. So you want to check your label on your glue. That's going to tell you what the glue is good for and where it's good for. So this glue wall, you can see it bonds strong, it dries clear, it's fast drying, and it works on a variety of surfaces. Here it's going to tell you what sort of surfaces it works. Notice nowhere in here does it say glass marbles or glass beads. So this one might not work if you're trying to add little glass marbles to something. This one is going to bond metal, stone, wood, and more, and it's waterproof. So that's a good choice if whatever you're making is going to be outside and exposed to rain. This one does say that it's not meant for photos, bare metal, submerged, so that tells me water. It's not going to work on anything that's going to get wet, or heated surfaces. So direct sun in the heat of summer might not be a good choice for this glue either. And it says keep from freezing. So I don't think this would hold up outside year round either. So definitely it's a good problem solving, and true 4-H motto here, learn by doing. I'm always learning more about glues and what's going to hold things together. So fairy doors are one of the easiest things to make if you're just getting started in the world of fairy gardening, because they're kind of flat. And many of us have already played with popsicle sticks, so you know how to lay out something that would be flat and door shaped. And then use that same idea, but you can add in different sticks and twigs and things like that to create the doors. And we had a fairy door workshop last year, the year before, here in Livingston County, and these were some examples of what the kids made that were super cute. And for a fairy door, I'll show you in one of the examples, it gets set usually towards the back of the fairy garden. But these were some other kinds of fun fairy accessories that I found when I did a quick internet search. So if you're stumped for ideas, type in fairy furniture or fairy chair or table, and the internet is full of pictures and cool ideas to start with. One thing I did want to point out, I mentioned the moss earlier, and moss can be your best friend, because if you notice, just the little bits of moss are here. I think it got cut off. There was more up at the top, all along the back side here. That is actually, it not only adds to the appeal of the furniture itself, but it's serving a very practical purpose. In that when you glue, think about if you've used hot glue or Elmer's glue before, you put your glue on, you stick things together, and a lot of times that glue will come out the edges, right? And then if you don't cover it up, you see the glue, and that's not always very attractive. So you can use a little bit of moss over the top of wherever you see the glue, or if you're trying to hide or camouflage some of your connection points when you're putting things together. Moss is a really good tool for that. Here's a few more just fun fairy accessories. If you know anybody who has wood cutting tools and can make you some of these tree cookies, those are a lot of fun. You can see they've made a staircase here, the ends of a bed frame here, and even down on this fairy door, fairy house, excuse me, they've made a little table with some different sized tree cookies. So those are good fun. And you can get super, super detailed with this. I thought this house that I found on the internet was just gorgeous. They used a bottle and grouted it and added all those stones on there. So it looks like just a very cute cobblestone fairy house. I loved the detail in the easel and stool here. I thought that was super cute. It made me think of Bob Ross as a fairy. And the toilet and the toilet paper just cracked me up. So I thought I would share that. You can see how very detailed these are. They're super tiny with lots of little things. So those, to get detailed like that is usually a skill that comes with a lot of practice. So these are not things that you would start out learning to do, but you could be working toward getting better at these kinds of things. One thing I did want to mention, for your materials, it's best to avoid plastic in them at all, because your fairy garden is going to be outside. Plastic's not good for the environment, and it's not good for wildlife that might be around. So I always try to encourage anyone doing a fairy garden to find what you can that already exists in nature and use those things creatively to create new things.